In the ancient times of the internet, and still sometimes now, shock sites were a thing. A shock site would just be something shocking, usually something gory, or some weird pornographic thing. Goatsy being a famous example to Girls 1 Cup being another. You can't talk about shock sites without mentioning 2 Girls 1 Cup and Goatsy. A shock site wows make sure it's a surprise though, so you don't expect it. So, there was a type of shock site that was branding itself as that. Gore sites, technically also entertainment sites, but they were shocking, so they'll go in both. One of the first gore sites was rotten.com. Rotten would have gore, some pretty sus material as well, presenting itself as a place for free speech online, when online censorship just started becoming a thing. Rotten had no thumbnails of videos, just links, and a very short description. Eventually Rotten was shut down in 2017, I think, with the last updates having happened in 2012. But what does that have to do with the title, you may ask, and the answer will be revealed soon. So Rotten was the first gore site, although gore wasn't the only thing on the site. That's what it's mostly known for. Basically Rotten being the first inspired other ones to pop up, a famous one being ogrish.com. Ogrish later became Liverleak, and if you've ever looked at just 10 minutes or less of gore, you've probably seen a Liverleak logo in a corner before. Liverleak did its thing, then got shut down, and turned into a temfix, which we just aren't going to get into. So, let's go back to when Liverleak was Ogrish for a second. A fan of the site decided to get the best videos he could find on there, then make a mixtape of it. A shock mixtape, there we go. Now this wasn't the first shock mixtape ever made, but it was like the third that was famous. Now, why did I choose to start the video talking about not the first shock mixtape? Well, you have to know about these websites for later. Also, how am I supposed to know the first one ever made? Now that introduction to those sites is over, time for my quick description of how this video is going to go. So, this intro already happened, but we still have lots and lots to cover. Like we'll have a few examples of famous shock mixtapes. Obviously, we will cover some of the controversies in these communities. The mixtape similarities to Mondo films, and what Mondo films are. That's basically it. Okay, let's finally please, happily, excitingly, enjoyably, entertainingly, educationally, pleasantly, gratifyingly, satisfyingly, and agreeably start this video. So, what is a shock mixtape? Well, you guessed it immediately, a mixtape of footage or images that are intended to shock. So, gore, violence, vomit, scat, just again, anything intended to shock you. Though these gore mixtapes have been a thing for quite a while, with one of the first, Traces of Death, which we'll get into in like 15 seconds, they haven't been popular until pretty recently. Well, around 2015's when they got most popular, with a fairly large wave of them being created in the early 2000s. If we are talking about shock mixtapes, we need to mention Traces of Death to start. It is the grandfather of them all. Now, it isn't too old, the first one having been made in 1993. The idea of Traces of Death was to outdo Faces of Death, hence the similar titles. Traces of Death was a bit more of a shockumentary, which I'll probably cover later in this video, but it still had the mixtape style. One topic with gruesome footage or images are briefly discussed and shown, then a pretty bad segue into the next. With shock mixtapes, usually it's just a cut without warning. There are also just cuts without warning in Traces of Death, but the only difference is how there is a narrator that explains what happened, then goes to the next. Kinda like my amazing series, Many Gores, which you should check out after this video, if you haven't already, which you statistically haven't. Traces of Death is just a narrator going over multiple topics in one film length, gore video essay type style. Nothing really special, other than it being the assumed first shock mixtape. It is a series, having 5 in it, the budget just getting slightly bigger, which, why would you exactly need a budget for something like this, but still. Music for montage type things come in for the third one in the series. The director is Damon Fox. Not sure if there is a second Damon Fox, but if not, then he is also a singer-songwriter for Bitch Elf and the Cult. So, you hopefully remember the intro, when I mentioned Ogrish, and how it got a mixtape series made out of it. Well, that's the next example. The creator? Unknown. The creation date? Around 2001. At least for the first one. We don't know much about the actual creation of it, but we sure do know what's in it. So, let's discuss it a bit. It has lots of mystery surrounding it. Or, more like a bit of mystery. It is assumed to be connected to another famous mixtape series, which we will also talk about later. You'll be noticing a trend with these mixtapes, most of them being made for a specific site. Ogrish, Best Gore, the YNC, etc. This one in particular, Ogrish, was a series of mixtapes presumably made each year for the time that it was branded as Ogrish. Ogrish would go for anything shocking, not just gore. The length of it is 2 hours and 47 minutes. Kinda crazy if you think about it, just 167 minutes of just one after another, extreme gore or some weird fetishization. There isn't necessarily anything special about Ogrish, but it was a great way to segue into this next one, so that's why I'm mentioning it for a trillionth time. This next one is the Stars of the YNC, a fairly large series, having 10 mixtapes made for it. But here is the reason I chose this one to go next. See this cover art. See the Ogrish cover art. Notice any similarities? So, people think that the creator of the Ogrish collection also made Stars of the YNC, which, by the way, another website. This mixtape got a bit of extra dislike because of it just having porn in it. Like, mon, put only gore in it. So, the YNC.com is a website that is again branding itself as uncensored news. Pretty original, I know. It has mostly gore, and well, obviously some porn as well. Major cringe if you ask me. It is shorter than the first Ogrish mixtape, but still pretty long, which you'll find to be a common theme among these mixtapes. It is presumed to have been released sometime in the mid-2010s. Around 2 hours in length, with more than 400 clips/images. That is a high number. Okay, we are done with the Stars of the YNC. Next up we have what many consider to be underwhelming. Fetus Munchers. This one has one crazy title. But, hate to break it to you, no fetuses are munched in this mixtape. Well, actually, if you get the physical DVD of it, which does exist, you get both Fetus Munchers Volume 1 and 2. People consider it mostly underwhelming, because it literally has cartoon gore in it. Viewers in this community are accustomed to seeing movie gore every once in a while, but when Happy Tree Friends pops up in a mixtape, it's basically immediately cringe. The creator is a bit too edgy for this community. Don't get me wrong, edginess is common in this community, but he is a bit too edgy. It got famous because the YouTuber Wendigoon had it in his Disturbing Movies Iceberg video. Originally this thing would be impossible to find, unless you go on the super scary dark web and dig for hours. Or just having the right connections, I guess. But, this mixtape is pretty real, and there are more than one DVD case designs, which is cool, I guess. Nothing in Fetus Munchers really stands out too much from the other famous mixtapes. It was probably made in either 2013 or 2014, according to the amazing YouTuber ColdRaven's Nest. It's pretty short. Well, not really, but for mixtapes, it's pretty short. Only 86 minutes in length. About 170 clips. Okay, but seriously bro, put only 20 gore clips out of those 170. This next topic is known for being difficult to find and for its extreme contents. It is titled Amber Alert, so you might be able to infer what is inside the mixtape. It is only violent content involving children. No child which is good, so it's not illegal to view. But many consider this to be the worst they have seen. A common agreement in this community is that Amber Alert was Snuff R73 wanted to be. What is Snuff R73? Good question. This mixtape is very difficult to find on the surface web without contacting some random dude on Reddit. Amber Alert has been talked about a fair amount, with people asking for the link, YouTubers covering the mixtape or specific clips inside of it. Believe it or not, one of the clips in Amber Alert I actually made a video about. This El Salvador girl one in the corner, unless I forgot to put it there, which I probably did. Also thank you this little lunatic for covering all of what's in it, so that I don't have to view it myself. Link in description. Another reason this mixtape is famous is because apparently at the end of the mixtape there is an in-depth explanation of what happens in the infamous hardcore video Days' destruction. It also may contain audio of illegal content, although that has not been confirmed. The creator of the mixtape is unknown, the initial upload date is also unknown, and the mixtape is about 30 or more minutes long. This next one is technically 3. It's hard to explain, but I'll try. So there was a group called Snuff R73, a group of about 5 people who were into gore and shockumentaries. They made 3 mixtapes. One called Snuff R73, after their group name. A second one called Snuff R73 2. And a final called Necropedophiliac. Just 2 pretty terrible things mixed together. But there isn't any child in any of the 3, as of my knowledge. I can guarantee that on the Necropedophiliac one, but not the other 2, as they remain lost. The content of the bad title is only child death and torture, mostly from the Syrian war. It's about 10 minutes in length. The kid in the picture for Snuff R73 is named Kieran Richard Horman. He went missing in the year 2010, on the 4th of June. The picture used for the cover was the last picture taken of Kieran. I only ended on this one, because if you know anything about this community, you've heard of this one, and because it can lead perfectly into the second chapter of this video. So this next one is MD Pope, a series of 3 mixtapes created by a person with many aliases, but mostly known for his alias Thomas Extreme Cinema Gore. MD Pope stand for Most Disturbed Person on Planet Earth. The creator, Thomas Cinema Gore, is one of the edgiest people I'm able to name. I can't quite explain why yet, but trust me, you'll agree with me in a bit. This mixtape has everything legal, basically. The first one had 2 hours and 27 minutes of footage. The second one is 3 hours and 7 minutes long. The third one is 3 hours and 40 minutes long. It just kept getting longer. She did not say that. Quite a few of you have been waiting for this section of the video, so here it is. If I'm being honest, there aren't a lot of controversies in this community, at least as of my knowledge. There are some pretty obvious controversies to mention, so I'll start with those, then I'll go on to the ones that aren't as known. The first controversy is definitely going to be on the creator of MD Pope, as he is the most notable example of controversial people in this community. So, the creator, going by many aliases including Thomas Cinema Gore or Thomas Extreme Cinema Gore or Most Disturbed Thomas Extreme Cinema Gore, Thomas Goresin, Nightfall, and probably a few more. Basically Thomas Cinema Gore would make promotional trailers for each one. Before even starting a trailer, he would show his finished product to people and ask for opinions, or he would tell them about some of the contents, then ask for feedback or constructive criticism. So when he was in the stage of asking for some feedback when talking about some of the contents, or what he would add, everyone he told about it said to remove a specific clip. This clip was from the most infamous hurtcore video ever. What is hurtcore, you may ask? It's a mix between the two words hardcore and hurt. So basically, hardcore mixed with purposefully inflicted pain. Hurtcore is also real abuse and of mostly minors. So really the most horrendous and revolting stuff imaginable. So Thomas Cinema Gore put some content from the hurtcore video titled Days' Destruction. A video created by Peter Scully, a now jailed man who had made videos in this style for money. The content in the Days' Destruction video involved a literal 18-month-old. I personally think that Peter Scully should been given the Funky Town Gore treatment. So somehow Thomas Cinema Gore got his hands on this video and put a clip into his mixtape and people didn't really like that. I wonder why. He did take the feedback and removed the clip from the mixtape, but thought it was a good idea to put audio from it into the promotional trailer for MD Pope 2. He lost quite a bit of respect and should been arrested, but he wasn't somehow. The FBI needs to get their priorities straight. Sadly Thomas Cinema Gore will pop up in here a few more times. People that collect or distribute Mondo films and mixtapes tend to not have any of the MD Popes in their collection, because Thomas Cinema Gore is a creepy pedophile that outed himself because he's pretty stupid. His excuse is that he doesn't care much for child and that he has it to prove that he is truly the most disturbed. Now you know what I mean by him being the most edgy person I can think of. He basically admitted to viewing and having possession of illegal contents and said, yeah I know. I'm pretty cool, right? No, I did not expect that. This next one is about basically everything about Ryan McPherson, a man who had made multiple shockumentaries in his life, most famous for his series Bum Fights. So the Bum Fights shockumentary series was basically just some late teens paying homeless people with money or alcohol to do some crazy things on camera. Some of the contents are similar to things like Jackass because they do some stunts, but they also just fight or do other gross things. It isn't necessarily a mixtape, but I'll say that it counts because mixtapes and shockumentaries are often fitted into the same category. One time Ryan McPherson went on Dr. Phil. It was kinda funny because Ryan was dressed as Dr. Phil, and when the introduction montage thing to Ryan was happening, Dr. Phil told them to stop playing the video and told Ryan to leave because it was despicable. Ryan asked if it was because he was exploiting the homeless citizens that he was mad, and then called out Dr. Phil for only exploiting people for his entire career. Pretty jiggered if I'm being honest, but he isn't really a good person either. In as much detail as I can I will explain why he isn't great. You already know about him exploiting homeless people for his own monetary gain, but did you know that one time he tried to ship a baby's face to America from Thailand? Yeah, pretty crazy, I know. Let's go through his story. So when he had fled to Thailand with Daniel Tanner, a co-producer of Bum Fights, he found a way to get his hands on a human adult heart with stab wounds, 3 children's feet, an infant's face, and 2 sheets of tattooed human skin, each in containers or jars. So because they are extremely intelligent individuals, they thought it'd be a good idea to attempt to ship them to their friends using DHL. This may come as a major surprise, but sometimes, 100% of the time maybe, shipping companies will see what's being shipped, so that they don't get in any legal trouble. They got caught pretty quickly and were questioned, but something a bit questionable happened. Both Ryan McPherson and Daniel Tanner were released without charge. They fled to Cambodia a few days later. I guess they didn't want to go to jail again. Yes, again. They were in jail because they were sued or something for the bum fights series. They had to pay 3 of the main homeless people and had to do 280 hours of community service. Ryan decided to not show up one day and was put in jail for 180 days. Okay, now that you are caught up with that, let's go a teeny bit deeper into Ryan and his group or company thing. I don't know what to call it. In Decline. In Decline is their movie production thingy I think that made bump fights and a few other things. One of the other things being In Decline Volume 1, Worse That You Think. Another shockumentary mostly on these teens and their graffiti mixed in with some homeless people, drug use, street fights and more. Let me tell you, it isn't worse than you think. Most of it is like baby stuff, not baby stuff. This is a bit of a shorter one as it doesn't have a huge amount of stuff to it, but because on average my longer videos do better, I'll gladly stretch this as long as I can. Before I can tell you about the controversy, I must inform you on a fairly famous case of murder in the late 80s in Japan. The Junko Furuta case. A teenager named Junko Furuta was kidnapped by 4 other teenagers being Hiroshi Miyano, Joe Ogura, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe. Junko was seen by Minato and Miyano at around 8:30 p.m. When Junko was leaving her shift at her job, they thought she would be a good one to kidnap and... Right. Miyano walked Junko home to gain the trust of her, then her in a warehouse and a hotel. As if this couldn't get so much worse, it got so much worse. Miyano took Junko to a park to meet up with Watanabe and the others. They informed her that they knew her exact house address and that the accuser would kill everyone in her family if she didn't comply. The 4 boys then took her to a house that Minato's parents owned, which was later their common meet-up place, to torture and her. Eventually, after all of the starvation and abuse to her, they were no longer sexually interested in her. On the 4th of January 1989, they were playing some magic, and Miyano lost. He decided to take out his anger by pouring lighter fluid on her and setting her on fire. She had attempted to put out the fire, but was sadly unsuccessful and had died an extremely painful death. Later, police had found and identified Junko's body in a cement drum. Film creators made some exploitation films about the Junko Furuta case such as Concrete, Encased High School Murder Case, Juvenile Crime, and the most famous one, Concrete. If you didn't know, there are channels that go over disturbing media specifically, not just horror movies, but disturbing horror movies. A good example would be Spookeris. So one of the channels that focuses on disturbing media would be Cinema's Underbelly. He made a video on the 3 previously mentioned Junko Furuta movies and sold the collection with the cement drum prop. Bad news, guys. I did a wrong bad. Kind of. So I said that Mr. Jonathan made them, but he didn't. What actually happened is he made a DVD thing with rare footage of the Junko Furuta case or things relating to it. As you can see, it says Putrid Productions presents, which Putrid Productions is his thing. Also, this person I introduce right after this, named Ziggy, made a mixtape series called Japan Oath, on which, if I'm correct, is like weird Yakuza type fetish sassy stuff. I don't know though. Feel free to tell me in the comments this exact second if you know. Here is a clip of the thing now, then we'll go back to this topic thing part thing.
Next is an old bootleg that I actually put out. This is the Junko Furuta Archive, and these are 2 documentaries that were shown on TV in Japan. There's nothing on the back. Talking a little further about Junko Furuta, this is a bootleg VHS of the film Juvenile Crime, which came out in 1997 and is basically a pinku sexploitation film retelling of the Junko Furuta murder. And it comes with a replica barrel drum with hair sticking out. If you've seen photographs of this, of the crime scene and stuff, there's a photograph with hair sticking out. So this is a replica. Only 5 of these were made, so this is fairly rare.
Someone going by Ziggy brought this up and said that Jonathan was a piece of poopy for doing this and that people should stop supporting him. I agree, as it is very disrespectful to sell a prop of a cement drum. Again, no. He did not sell that prop. He made that short mixtape of 2 documentaries, which is hypocritical considering he made a video on hating those exploitation films. Ziggy then got harassed by supporters of Jonathan and had to delete all of his social media accounts, or at least disable them temporarily. Jonathan never apologized or even brought it up really. If you ask me, Jonathan does kinda suck for this. One of Ziggy's friends then summarized the story and agreed that Jonathan was pretty cringe. It seems like people are in support of Ziggy now, so that's good. For this one, again there isn't much information on it, so it'll probably be shorter, but it's still worth bringing up. I'll speedrun this one for you. There is a Reddit Judah that went by Ted O'Hay, and he formed a small group to make a mixtape. If I'm corrected, was the one that was going to put all these probably rare clips and put them together in an editing software. So these other team members spent a lot of time finding these clips and then sent it to Ted. Ted then stole the clips and just left them. He then avoided always to be confronted by leaving Discord servers and not contacting anyone. He then posted about the mixtape and how only he made it, and after people hated him for lying, he deleted the post. In any community there is bound to be people spreading misinformation. Because the internet exists, and people can be anonymous much easier, people spread misinformation all the time. One of the best examples would be a lot of what Plagued Moth says. Plagued Moth is a gore YouTuber, and he tends to forget what the word research is or means. Don't get me wrong, it's fine watching his content every once in a while. But he'll often spread misinformation, although not purposefully. He never apologizes or corrects himself, which is a bit of a problem. But he isn't the only one. Random commenters on Reddit, YouTube, Instagram, and more will just lie based on what someone like Plagued Moth or Wendigoon said. Wendigoon once said in his Disturbing Movies Iceberg video that anything on the final tier is illegal to view or have possession of, which is quite a lie, depending on where you live sometimes.
Also, I should mention, like all of these are highly illegal. Most of these will catch you either a cheese pizza charge all the way to withholding evidence. So I highly stress, do not research, do not look up on your own.
Let me quickly explain what that means. Here is the final tier of the iceberg, and they are almost all mixtapes, with one movie exception. MDPOP, though disturbing, not illegal to view. None of them. Snuff R73 has so much to it which we'll cover later, but no, it's not illegal. Fetus Munchers 1 and 2 are completely legal, and some people say it's fairly tame. Ogrish is also completely legal to view, but people say it's pretty boring. Porn Gore 1 and 2 has an extreme title, but it isn't illegal again. Registris Fatace is also not illegal, and has a pretty positive rating from viewers. Then the movie is just a really weird movie, not much to it. But because he naively said that it was illegal, his viewers would flood comments of YouTubers that cover that type of content and just harassed them. Wendigoon actually apologized though, so that's at least better.
The biggest mistake that I have made as a content creator. In the Disturbing Movie Iceberg, which is still the most well-performing video on my channel, and thank you all for that, but near the end, I didn't choose my words carefully enough. When describing researching stuff for tier 8, I said be careful as you go down there, a lot of stuff you'll find contains cheese pizza. And with certain snuff films such as R73, which was on that iceberg, people were saying that the reason it's such a scary film that no one's to watch is because it contains cheese pizza. Not everyone, but a large enough majority of people took that to mean anything on tier 8 contains cheese pizza. So it ended up happening, and this is what I'm regretful for, is people on YouTube who are great people I've spoken to since then, such as ColdRaven's Nest and Brutality Will Rule 666, were having their comment sections attacked by people who heard me say those things about these movies and then assumed that these content creators on YouTube had footage that they shouldn't have. By the way, if someone's on YouTube and they're openly talking about owning something and they're also reviewing all the content of it on YouTube, it's safe to say it doesn't include that kind of stuff. And a lot of people who just like messed up movies were being accused of the most abhorrent of crimes, and for that I am once again sorry.
Now for a quick thing on Snuff R73, as people still don't actually know the truth of it. Snuff R73 is a 10-minute 55-second long short mixtape that is actually called Necropedophiliac, but referred to Snuff R73 for two reasons: people not liking saying that word, and because the creators of the mixtape go by Snuff R73, and they forgot to put the words "made by" before their name on the cover. The creators are assumed to have made two other mixtapes, titled after themselves, Snuff R73 and Snuff R73 Second. That's it. But people keep saying stuff like it has CP in it, guys. I saw. Trust me. Which is dumb. Why lie about viewing something like that? Yes, it is only content of children. It has no illegal content. Thomas Cinema Gore said that he was sent Snuff R73 and that he watched it and said that it was a copy of MDPOPE, with most clips in it also being in MDPOPE. He said that he was sent Snuff R73 Second by the same person, and he said that he liked that it was more original, but he said it didn't have the right ingredients for a mixtape to be good, such as dicks, tits, vomit, animal torture, or bestiality. So something is extremely wrong with Thomas Cinema Gore. In the community of collecting mixtapes, people quickly realize that there are enough mixtapes. So not only did people start making mixtapes, but people started collecting Mondo films, shockumentaries, and some disturbing movies. An example of Mondo films would be Mondo Kane. An example of a shockumentary would be Traces of Death. An example of a disturbing movie would be Midsommar, or Speak No Evil. An example of mixtape would be Fuba or Fetus Munchers. Thanks to some Reddit guys, I can now explain what a Mondo film is. A Mondo film is a film that makes itself seem mostly or fully real, when in reality not, and on a disturbing topic or topics. According to user private specifics old and user mosh_bunny, the topics are sensationalized, or exaggerated for entertainment, or in some instances, propaganda to paint other cultures as bad. Speaking of propaganda, propaganda will be our next video idea, so don't get excited for that. Shockumentaries are documentaries dealing with real death or violence footage, so things from in decline. Mixtapes are similar to compilations, but different. Mixtapes will have the shocking stuff, and so will compilations, but mixtapes are on many things, like gore, scat, vomit and other gross things, while compilations are on one grody thing. And usually mixtapes have some editing, not just the clips smashed together. Disturbing movies are just movies that are disturbing. So Baby Blues, The House That Jack Built, An American Crime. You can probably name some as well. That's basically it. Let's have some credits to make this video look cooler, I think. I hope I remember to put really useless funny credits in there.